It is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. The show that delights Doc Walker with analysis and disappoints him with our haircuts. Anthony, I don't know if the DOC's made it to his car yet. I don't know if the DOC's made it out of his building yet. But in case he listens later on the podcast, he comes in. And he was all excited because he thought you were growing your hair out. And I was like, nah, man. Like, Anthony went to the barber today. And he's like, oh, no, he said he's going dreads. He's doing the whole thing. And he's always on you about your hair for some reason or the other. And he was just, when I told him that you had gone and got a haircut, the like real disappointment in his voice, in his demeanor, in his body language, it hurt. Like, I was like, wow, I think he's like really, really actually disappointed by this. And so I tell you this, and by the way, as he's walking out, Doc goes, that's why he must have that toboggan on. Because you had a hat on, a toboggan, a beanie. However, I said that, I told you that story, and you said, actually, well, it actually started because you were like, I need a haircut so bad. And I was like, I thought you went today, but you scheduled the wrong time. And so Doc's hopes still live?
I mean, I guess they do live because I won't be getting a haircut until, I hope next week. I don't even know because my barber usually is booked, and I usually have to book very far in advance, and I don't cheat on my barber. So I have to wait till a slot opens up for me to go. So I guess his dream does live on. But yes, I scheduled the wrong time, and I thought I had scheduled an earlier time, and it was actually a later time, and I was just like, no!
It's a bad feeling. It's a bad feeling. Bad feeling. I'm getting one tomorrow. Desperately needed because
Rub it in, Craig.
I should have had one 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
This has been a nightmare. It actually looks all right. I'm having a good hair day today, and it's like, it's not that bad. It's terrible. This is way too long. This is not good.
You think so?
It's just a lot of hair, bro.
No, it is a lot of hair.
A lot to deal with up here. Salad is. I can do fun stuff with it. I can do like the whole rock hair thing because it actually moves.
Heavy though?
No, it's pretty light.
Okay.
Although I'll say that, and then I'll get my hair cut tomorrow and be like, dang. I actually wonder. I weighed in. What's today? Today's Tuesday. I weighed in this morning. Maybe I'll get a haircut and I'll weigh in on Thursday morning and see how different it is.
Okay.
Maybe it is heavy. Maybe that's why that number's not moving the way I want it to. I'm actually getting stronger, but it's really the hair. It's holding me back on the leanness. But I actually I literally tagged my barber on Instagram the other day, and I was like, every time I walk out, they're like, would you like to make your next appointment? And I'm like, nah, I don't know exactly what my schedule is going to be. I'll make it in the app. Idiot. And then I go to get one, and I need to wait 2 weeks because everyone's booked up.
See?
I have two people that are they're okay with me sharing them.
Okay.
Because it's the same company, just two different locations. And based off their schedules, they're like, nah, I love the other person. Like, they're cool people. They do a good job. And so I have two options because I also don't cheat on my barber. I only found the second one because the first one was on vacation and I needed a haircut. And so, but I've been going to this company for like 7 years. Bearded Goat, shout out. I'll give you the shout out. And so I always go to book and then there's nothing available. So I was like, when I come in on Wednesday, do not let me leave without setting a new appointment.
Oh, man.
When I tell you guys, I'll make the appointment in the app, you go, no, you won't, you dingus. Would you like one 4 weeks from now? And then I will go, yes, I would. That's the correct way to address me, Sir Dingus, the idiot who forgets to put his haircuts on his schedule ahead of time. That's me. Anyway, speaking of bad decisions that I made, finally the rent has come due, Anthony. The hot sauces are here. They're sitting in the other room.
Yes, sir.
I should have had them to hold up. We got two hot sauces from Heatnist, the company that produces the hot sauces in accordance with the YouTube show Hot Ones. And we've defined the Wheel of Mediocre Punishment. as about a 7 out of 10 on the Hot Ones scale, the one before Da Bomb, if you're a Hot Ones watcher. And so I went ahead and just went straight, instead of trying to find a wing sauce in DC that fit that bill, I just ordered some straight from the company themselves. We have some wings set to be delivered to the studio sometime between 5 and 5:30. Actually, no, we're actually going. It's a shout out for local businesses in Navy Yard Day. We're actually ordered some pickup wings from the Big Stick, so we're gonna go pick them up while we play the Take Command bit for you today, and we're gonna do that. We're gonna sauce up the wings, and then what are we doing? 5:45, Anthony? When this is all going down?
Yes, sir.
5:45. Not only will we do competition Wednesday on a Tuesday because Anthony's gone tomorrow, where it's actually going to turn into a mini episode of Hot Ones, because before I pick each game that I'm going to pick, I got to eat a wing. Sauced in either Ninja Napalm, or it's actually, I can't remember the other one. It's like a curry flavored hot sauce. But it's going to be hot. It's not going to be terrible, I hope. But rent has come due, so if you're driving home now and maybe you finish out the show on the podcast, typically, tuning in live on YouTube to watch me sweat at 5:45 might be good entertainment. That's all I'm going to say. So that's coming up today. But it's a Tuesday, so it's a Vibe Check Tuesday, and we got a whole bunch of stuff to get to on this here radio show.
Still to come on the Hoffman Show.
It is a Vibe Check Tuesday, so we're going to take your calls starting now at 301-230-0980. The Commanders are into the divisional round for the first time since 2005. Can they get their first divisional round win since 1991? And how are you feeling as Jaden Daniels leads another Cardiac Commander victory? 301-230-0980. Your calls until 5 o'clock. That's when Mitch Tischler joins us. You'll hear a Take Command Logan Paulson breakdown of the Commanders' run game coming up at 5:30. A pick six at 6 today because, well, it's the Commanders' Wednesday, and thus Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels spoke. You'll hear from them at 6. Our NFL tiers at 6:30. We're locked and loaded on a Vibe Check Tuesday on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980.
The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. Can I also let you know that tomorrow, Vince Wilfork will be with us. Actually chatted with the big fella this morning. Very cool initiative he's doing, or a very fun initiative, I should say, with Tums and DraftKings. Corporate partnership, Anthony. You got to love it. Tums and DraftKings. But reached out and they were like, hey, you want to talk to Vince Wilfork? I was like, hell yeah, I want to talk to Vince Wilfork. Great stuff from him that we're going to air on tomorrow's show, probably 4:30, maybe 5:30 tomorrow. So TBD on that. But stay tuned, as they say. And, if you do wind up missing it live, then, well, we got a podcast. Just search The Hoffman Show wherever it is that you get yours. And the show is available anytime, anywhere, on demand. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday. We'll get to your calls expeditiously at 301-230-0980. But while we wait for the phone lines to fill up, Anthony, do you feel just being around the city the last couple of days? Like, let's do a real-life, non-radio call Vibe Check. I've seen more burgundy and gold in the city in the last, 3 weeks than I have in the last almost 10 years that I've lived here. And, certainly there have been times that it's popped up a little bit more, popped down. After the sale, certainly people were like, ha, there's that, let me dust off that hat that I haven't worn in a while or whatever. But I think when I go to other cities, especially when I'm there for football, it's around football weekend, so people tend to wear their gear a little bit more. But just walking in the couple blocks around my house or going running errands, being here, being there, it definitely feels like it is a more outwardly proud fan base than we have had in a long time, which makes sense because unlike most of the last 30 years, on and off the field, there's plenty to be proud of with how this team is playing right now.
Yeah, definitely. There's been a lot of fans coming out of the woodworks. And not to say, they're bandwagon hopping, but I think to the point you just made where there's finally something to, be proud of, the results that are on the field kind of thing. And yeah, everywhere I've gone, I've been seeing more and more Commander sweaters. I've been seeing hats. I've been seeing Jaden Daniel jersey. My dad is even, pulling out his old Santana Moss jersey. It's a lot going on, and it's a lot, to be happy for, especially considering we finally won a playoff game in nearly 20 years. So, I think the sky's the limit for this team. We're young, we have new ownership, and I think we played the bite and road things yesterday with Magic
yeah.
and Josh Harris, and they just talked about how they were able to come in, change a few things, allow the personnel that they put in place to handle everything on the field, and they just took their step back. So I think it's an indictment on the people that we've put in place and allowing them to actually do their job, as opposed to elsewhere in what our previous regime used to be.
I think in terms of just publicly displaying your fandom, when you wear a shirt, when you wear a hat, when you wear whatever, it's kind of a conversation starter. It's like, oh yeah, you're a Commanders fan. You're this, you're that. Why you're an Eagles fan? Why are you wearing that in DC? There's all kinds of conversations that can get started around sports just by simple, what people are wearing. And I think over the last bunch of years, why would you want to start that conversation? It's not that you didn't root for your team and follow along and follow your favorite reporters on social media, follow your players on social media, listen to shows like this that you didn't watch on Sundays. Maybe you wore your gear on Sundays because it was game day. But by the time Monday rolled around, you sure didn't want to have that conversation because of what happened on Sunday. And I think that's the difference now is it's Tuesday. Let me find my burgundy and gold because I want to talk about the Commanders all the time, every single day. And I think that's when fandom can be at its best, when it's fun, it's joyous, it's a shared experience. That's what makes sports great. It brings people together. And I think the vibe in the city around this team is excellent. And I'm just really excited to see it continue to go. And what I'm hopeful, too, is that if this ride does come to an end without a Lombardi trophy, which the overwhelming odds would tell you that that's going to be the case if we're being realistic, maybe it happens this weekend, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it happens next weekend. Maybe it happens with a crushing Super Bowl loss. But ultimately, people will, I think, have enough good memories stacked to look back fondly at the 2024 season and be really proud of it. And by the way, just in case anyone missed Real Things yesterday and hasn't seen this going around social media, here is that bite that Anthony talked about with Magic Johnson and Josh Harris outside the locker room in Tampa Sunday night.
This man right here. No, this is serious. You said, what does it take? New vision, new owner with a strategy, picking the right people. First, our coach, Coach Quinn, Adam Peters, and then we all step out the way and let them do their job.
Talent, culture, and people, man.
There it is.
Talent, culture, and people.
So that's it. Don't make this about us. It's about those guys.
Yeah, well,
Matt, did you envision it happening this fast? 2 years?
Quarterback.
How could you?
Got to get a quarterback.
We'll see you guys in Detroit. It's going to be cool.
Make it about those guys.
And then I love the thing that you pointed out yesterday and that I was listening for today. Josh Harris at the very end going, it's going to be cold. Yeah. But I love Josh in the background. Like Magic saying some pretty important stuff there, obviously. But I listened to, I've mentioned this a couple times because we've talked about the various job openings around the NFL and some of the differences and why a guy like Cliff might want to stay here versus go somewhere else. And listening to someone like Shad Khan and the Jags owner give his press conference and being asked about like winning and these different things and what's it going to take. And he's just like, you just got to win. And like, there's no plan. There's no execution. There's nothing to execute. It's just like vibes, bro. It's saying like, we're going to win. We're going to figure it out. We have a good roster. We want to, and like all those things matter. But Josh Harris literally has a 3-point plan. Talent, culture, people. That simple. That organized. And if he has that, that means when he's hiring, he knows what to look for. Okay, talent, culture, people. Do we have people with the right talent? Are those people going to be a part of our culture? And like, do we invest in them as people so that we maximize them? So that we don't have someone who is talented that because of the culture and because we don't look at them as a whole person and we don't figure out how to maximize them, that we're only getting 50% of what they can give us from a talent standpoint. And I think that really explains a lot of his success across sports. I mean, all his teams are good. Do you think that's a coincidence? I know the Sixers have been up and down and maybe they haven't reached the height that Sixers fans would want. And the Devils haven't won a Stanley Cup yet. But like the Devils, when he took them over, were bad. And I'm not a huge hockey guy, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty good and have been for the last couple of years. They've been on the up and up. Let's see. ESPN.com/NHL/standings. Where are the New Jersey Devils this year? They are right behind the Washington Capitals for second in the Metropolitan Division. They're 5 points off Washington. They're in second. So they're having a good year. That's good enough, by the way, for second in the Eastern Conference, sitting on 56 points, tied with Toronto. So they're pretty good. The Sixers, they've had some issues with some injuries and some other things, but like they're that Kawhi Leonard shot away from an NBA Finals appearance probably. They've done a lot of right stuff and it hasn't worked out for whatever reason in the playoffs, and they've had some, I think, unexpected mistakes as well. The whole Brian Colangelo thing, I don't know that you could have seen that this dude had like fake Twitter accounts and everything coming. And I also kind of think that the NBA stepped in there and probably stepped on their plan of like, hey, you have to stop being this terrible, even though the plan was working and kind of did work in a lot of ways, because even though they missed on a bunch of stuff, they got Joel Embiid and have been a 50-win team year over year. And we know how hard 50 wins is to get in the NBA because the Wizards have it. Okay, people know that stat. 1979. Okay, but with the Commanders, same thing. Comes in and instantly you see, obviously not instantly, because last year the seeds had already been planted. The crop was going to grow, and the crop was craptastic with what Ron Rivera had planted before Josh Harris got there. But you start to see some of the things that Harris can control off the field change immediately. Some of the stuff around the stadium and improvements, and they're focused on, a couple things here, a couple things there. And you see incremental moves. They have an entire offseason, and the whole experience changes. And obviously the on-the-field product becomes much better when he gets to hire his people. Not a coincidence. Ownership matters, and Josh Harris is good at it, and it's because he can quickly summarize, quickly identify exactly what it is that he is looking for. He has a clear vision. That vision is one that is well put together, well thought out, and works. And now it's just a matter of executing. And it doesn't guarantee anything because there is nothing guaranteed in sports. There's an element of luck to this. And they have gotten very lucky in that their terrible year was in a year that landed them with the number 2 pick in one of the most loaded quarterback drafts in recent memory. Had they been just a year later, then who knows? Because they could be the number 2 pick this year in a 0 potentially quarterback draft. And that's not a good place to be. So I'll take it. They'll take it. We'll take it. This weekend, Detroit, 8 o'clock is the kickoff. We have our pregame starting as early as 3 p.m. here on the Team 980. But if you think about it, Anthony, we've kind of already started. I mean, we're just looking forward to this game all week.
Hey, look, we ready, man.
Starting at 6 a.m. with the Junkies every morning.
Yes, sir.
Sheehan at 10, Russell at 1. We're starting at 4, and we're just rolling on through this playoff game Saturday night in Detroit. When we get back, it's a Vibe Check Tuesday. We're taking your calls at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, and we're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. 301-230-0980 is our phone number on a Vibe Check Tuesday. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're taking your calls, seeing how you're feeling off of the Commanders' first divisional round victory. First wild card round victory, first playoff win since 2005. Pop quiz, Anthony Haney. Do you know your history? When was the last time the Washington Commanders won in the divisional round of the NFC playoffs?
1991.
Okay. How many times have they lost since then?
In the divisional round?
Yes. See, there was a follow-up. You had your one stat ready.
We haven't been there.
That's incorrect.
Oh, no. Actually, no. 2005.
No, it's incorrect. 3. They lost in 1999 in the divisional round. I believe the other one was 1995. So they've made it this far multiple times, but they have not broken through since the last time they won the Super Bowl at the end of the 91 season, early January 1992.
You stumped me, Craig.
It helps when you look it up before the show, Anthony. That's why I'm the most prepared man in radio. That's 1,000% not true, but I am pretty prepared. You guys can quiz me all you want on the phones now. 301, I'm just going to get trivia questions. Do you know the last time that Sonny and... I love that, something that sounds so old school. Just Sonny and Sam. And it's like, actually, that was this franchise. That was Washington. It's old Sonny and Sam. 301-230-0980. They've won since Sonny and Sam. Everyone knows that because there's been 3 Lombardi trophies since then. 301-230-0980 is the phone number on a Vibe Check Tuesday. Let's get things started with DC. DC, thanks for calling on a Vibe Check Tuesday. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Great day, Hoffman. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great, man. I'm feeling fantastic.
That's good. I'm vibing high as well, man. I really appreciate you touching on, what Magic said and Josh Harris. But a lot of people forget about Bob Myers being hired first after he took a year to assess the league, find out what staffing and what he wanted his organization to be like. He hired Bob Myers first. He was selfless in doing that and wanting to build an organization the right way. And a lot of people don't know Bob Myers came from the Golden State Warriors, so I'm pretty sure those GMs and managers and owners mingled while they were out in California together. Then we hired Adam Peters, then we hired DQ, and so forth and so on, and we went and got the quarterback. So, our organization was built from the foundation up the right way, and that's creating the vibe that we feeling now, man. And I appreciate you speaking into existence of us winning the division championship game.
All right, man. Appreciate the call. And I love the Bob Myers shout, too, because I think that Bob, look, on the list of people that are important for the Commanders' success, is Bob Myers particularly high? In a way, probably not. But Bob Myers knew Adam Peters very, very well. They were obviously colleagues. They were contemporaries, if you will, out in the Bay Area, where Bob was building the four-time NBA champion Golden State Warriors, and Adam Peters was the San Francisco 49ers assistant general manager. They knew each other very well. They had talked sports before, talked ball before, if you will. They've talked about team building. They knew each other. That didn't guarantee that Adam Peters was going to get the job, but there was a certain familiarity and comfort there that it surely helped Adam feel good about Josh Harris. Adam Peters has turned down plenty of other opportunities. And so if you say that Adam Peters is the most important person, well, Bob Myers played a big role, I think, one, in the interview process of saying to Josh, hey, this is the kind of leader that you want if you want to build a championship organization. These are the things that we focused on. These are the things that we wanted to have as standards that go across sports, that are not just football or not just basketball. It's not like Bob Myers is like, hey, how do we shoot threes in football? That's not a strategic, schematic type of whatever that Bob Myers is bringing to the table. I'm sure Bob Myers, as a football fan, has thoughts on football, but he's not a football expert in the way that he is obviously a basketball expert. But there are things that cross sports that maybe are differing levels of important, because I do think an NBA locker room with 12 to, now it's like 17 guys is very different than an NFL locker room with 53 plus the practice squad and whatever else. You're talking about like 65 guys plus all the coaches and staff and everybody that's around the building. It's a very, very different dynamic, but they're both, once you add in the staff of the NBA, it feels like these teams have like 20 assistant coaches now, plus their medical staff, plus everything else. There's like 50 people in a traveling party. But you have these dynamics that are really important, and where your leadership comes from, the importance of the right veterans. Like, I do think that the more I think about it, there are some Bob Myers imprints on this roster, Bob Myers fingerprints on this roster. Of course, finding your Steph Curry is a lot harder said than done, and they probably did that with Jaden Daniels. Sick. But Bob also was a guy that brought in a lot and always had around like the right vets. And eventually guys like Steph and Draymond became those vets. And you could argue that at times Draymond was the right vet and at times Draymond was the wrong vet. And that was some of their problems, a la the Jordan Poole stuff that went down in such a horrible way. But having Andre Iguodala, Leandro Barbosa, there's been other guys, Jarrett Jack back in the day. Like, they had guys at the start of their dynasty that were essential. And if you ask Steph Curry about them, you ask Klay Thompson, you ask Bob, you ask Steve Kerr, they will tell you those guys were so valuable, David Lee, to what they did in Golden State. Some of them were around long enough to get rings. And I realize that, their dynasty in some level starts in 2015 when Kerr gets there. But even some of the stuff they did under Mark Jackson, like, that took serious gumption for Myers to move on from a coach who was well-liked by a star player. And some of the guys that had been there were really, really important to the habits that were formed. And then Kerr took it to a whole new level, and Steph obviously grew into being Steph and the whole deal. But the more I think about it, Bob Myers, as we think of all the people that are responsible for their success this year, Bob Myers is a good shout, because while day in, day out, his importance is probably not very high, the most important people that are in place are there because he was one of the first, if not the literal first, chronological move that Josh Harris made last off season. I remember waiting on the text and waiting on the tweets and all that kind of stuff for Rivera to get fired and getting the Bob Myers one first and being like, whoa. And Rick Spielman too. Shout out to Rick Spielman. But I think Myers clearly on the long term was someone who they were more keen on keeping around, and I'm sure he's been a good sounding board for Adam and for Josh and for others around that organization this year. But to have as I actually was talking about this to preview tomorrow's conversation. I was talking about this with Vince Wilfork a little bit earlier today. Again, you'll hear that interview tomorrow here on the Team 980. But I don't know how closely, I actually know that like he hasn't followed the Commanders day in, day out. He said he's watched quite a bit of them and loves the story and has been following along. But like, he used the term brotherhood. He used the exact term. And when he was talking about his old Patriot teams and, how they played for each other. And he talked about how the veterans that were there when he got there were guys that he had grown up watching. Like, he had so much reverence for Willie McGinnis and so much reverence for Teddy Bruschi, guys that had been in the league in that first Patriots dynastic run that were still in the primes of their careers in the case of most of them, but could bring a young guy like Wilfork along to be what he was pretty instantaneously. And I look at a team like the Packers, who has the youngest roster in the league when weighted for number of snaps. One, I think they're the youngest roster in the league anyway, just pure average age, but certainly snap weighted, where they just don't have a lot of experience playing anywhere. So take the number of snaps, multiply that by the age, and do the whole average, and Packers' youngest team in the league. And they're very good. But they do a lot of dumb stuff. Like, I got friends who are Packers fans, and they would lament, we are the dumbest team in the league. We cannot stop committing stupid penalties. We cannot, get out of our own way. Emotionally, we'll lose it in big moments. Think of the personal foul penalty late in that Eagles game. That kind of sealed. I mean, at that point, the game was probably over, but that was the end of the end. Erased all chances. that's kind of who the Packers have been all year. And Washington has avoided that because they brought in Wagner. They brought in Ertz. There's a maturity to this team. They brought in guys even like Dorrance Armstrong, who was with Dan and Dante Fowler, and those guys know what those guys are about. They know what the coaches are about. And so that, to me, is a bit of a Bob Myers imprint on this team. And it certainly flows mostly through Adam Peters, who believes many of the same things. It's not like Bob told him, like, hey, man, make sure you do this. And Adam was like, wow, I never thought of that before. They did a lot of the same stuff in San Francisco. One of the guys they brought to San Francisco to implement Kyle Shanahan's standard and help teach the other guys the offense and the way to go about their business as professionals is a guy named Logan Paulson. You might have heard of him. And if not, you'll hear from him at 5:30 and realize that he's really smart. Because I host a show with him a couple times a week. It's called Take Command. We're going to play a little bit for you coming up at 5:30. But like it reaffirms that those things are the right things, I guess is the simplest way to put it. So that's a great shout from DC on the phones at 301-230-0980. More of your calls on a Vibe Check Tuesday next. 301-230-0980. How you feeling about this Commanders victory and on to the divisional round? It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. This is Vibe Check Tuesday, where we typically take calls on how Commanders fans are feeling. And you would think we'd have full phone lines of people that are really happy, Anthony. How many people do we have on the phones right now, Anthony?
2 minus 2. 0.
It's a 0. Why do people like to call radio stations more when they're mad and angry and want to complain about their coach? And then they complain that the media is too negative, and it's really just them yelling at themselves. How about that for a hot take? Is that correct? Why don't you guys talk about more of the good stuff when they do? All you do is criticize. It's like, yeah, criticism's easier. They need to fix this, this, and this. Hey, you did a good job of this. Great job. Conflict creates stories. They're too good. There's no conflict. We're in a weird spot right now where everybody feels good. As opposed to, like, when you're the Chiefs, the Chiefs have been good for too long. Remember when Pat Mahomes was like the upstart? Oh, is he going to beat Brady? Is he not only going to beat Brady now, but is he going to be the guy that dethrones him in the GOAT long term? And everyone's all rooting for him because he's doing all these crazy throws. He's throwing balls behind his back. He's got no looks. He's sidearming. He's running out. And now it's like, the Chiefs are boring. They win too much. The Chiefs suck. I hate them. Of course, some people just want an excuse to yell about other things adjacent to the Chiefs, but we're not going to address them right now. But right now, the Commanders are just in this happy mode where, like, what are you going to do? Call and say how happy you are? Yeah, that sounds great. Let's have a happy fest. Let's have joy. We don't do this so that we can sit in our homes or our cars or whatever alone. No, we do it so that we can share in the joy of victory. That's what coming together is about. Let's go. Or if you have fears moving forward about the team, I'm not going to shout you down. I might say, like, I don't agree with you, but I'll explain why. I can perhaps alleviate your fears. So let's give this phone thing a try. Y'all do this. Didn't do this in the middle of the regular season when things were a little sketch. Now we got more people that want to call. See, Anthony, sometimes you just got to beg. Sometimes you gotta let the guard down. You just got to beg, and then people like Kevin in Virginia call. Kevin, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. All positives, a great season. I might be it's a question. It doesn't mean to be negative, but I'm a little worried about our man Lattimore.
Sure.
Was he hurt on Sat? Was he still hurting? Because I'm surprised Tampa Bay didn't keep going back to Evans, because Evans seemed to have his number. And I'm a little concerned about the Lions. I think their best receiver is Amara St. Brown. Will he be covering that receiver, or how are they going to deploy him? The Lions have a lot of weapons. They've got that tight end that's the best in the league, Laporta. They've got the 2 running backs.
Yep.
And they've got this St. Brown guy. And I think they need Lattimore to be able to cover him one-on-one, and I'm afraid either he's hurt or something's going on there. I just thought I'd ask your thoughts on that.
No, Kevin, it's a great question, and I definitely went back and watched all of that stuff on tape. And I would say this about Lattimore. To me, he didn't look hurt. He looked rusty. And what I mean by that is, like, when he would turn and run, it wasn't like, I'm like, oh, he's gimpy. But his timing and his technique was all just a little off. And sometimes, like, Liam Cohen is one of the best offensive coordinators in the league. The problem is, so is Ben Johnson. I know people here have feelings about Ben Johnson because of the head coach search last year, but, like, as an OC, dealing with him in the role that he has this weekend, that dude's a nightmare. He is so good at creating wide open guys. And so was Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator in Tampa. Like, they did a good job of putting Evans, like, we'll put him in the slot, create some traffic, and make it so you got to run through some guys. And Baker lets the ball go quickly as soon as he sees that he's cleared the right guy. And, like, they got him a couple times on some tough covers. There's a couple other times where, yeah, like, Lattimore gets got. And sometimes he like goes for a punch or like he has to turn his hips. And it's all happening a step slower than it should. And to me, that says a guy that's rusty, and hopefully he can be better this week. But St. Brown, Williams, Gibbs, Montgomery, Laporta, like they just got an endless swath of weapons. I do think the one positive against Detroit compared to Tampa, now overall Detroit's a way better offense. And like Tampa's a really good offense. Detroit's the best offense in the league. But at least you don't have to worry about quarterback scramble. And that was something that did hurt Washington against Tampa with Baker. All right, let's go to Dave. Dave, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig, it's always great to talk to you. I always appreciate your take on stuff. You're always very level-headed and educated with everything you do. So
Thank you,
I just
Dave.
wanted to say that first. Yeah. I'm actually Zen's World in the chat right now on YouTube, so anybody who wants to come in the chat. But I think everything you just said is really hit the head. I mean, that with the weapons that the Detroit offense has, they're there, and we know it. But the fact that we don't have a scrambling quarterback to deal with will help a lot. I do think Lattimore is still a little bit like, not like he's not injured, but when you've got that nagging thing, and like
right.
you said, that it was like rusty, because you see him, in the beginning of the game, if you see our defense, we started with really good intensity, we held them to a field goal, then our offense came out, marched up the field, and we had so much confidence that we went for it in that fourth down. It wasn't until the end of the second quarter, after our huge drive where we were dominated and we were scaring Tampa, that's the first time Tampa noticed when we were in the end zone and Lattimore had the Evans the interference, and then they got the touchdown. Like, that's, I think, the first time Tampa was like, okay, we can attack Lattimore. But the great thing about Witt was, if you see what they did in that second half, was they were able to mask a lot of Lattimore and Evans matchups, where it looks like Lattimore is lined up, but then they would shift off and have another defender pick them up. I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff against Detroit, because we're not going to be able to go man-to-man with them a lot. Maybe certain situations, but we're going to do a lot of zoning with their offense. I think our matchup that we're going to dominate on, if we have it, not dominate, but we really have our chance to win, is our offense being so much better than their defense, especially the fact that so many people got on, I'm sorry to keep getting long-winded, but so many people got on B-Rob this game, like, oh, his stats. Like, well, if you look at what they did against Tampa, they weren't going to do a lot of up-the-middle running when you're playing against Tampa.
Right. Tampa's run defense is great. And, Dave, to your point, too, you talk about them not having the opportunities. Like, the best defense for Washington against Tampa is going to be the same one against Detroit. Don't let them have the ball.
Yeah.
And they dominated time of possession. And, Dave, I got to let you run because we're up against the clock here, but thanks for calling, and thanks for leaving some fun comments in the chat as well on YouTube. And, it's the type of thing where if you just don't give the other team opportunities, they can't do anything. Like, Baker Mayfield only threw the ball 19 times. 7 of those went to Mike Evans, and he had a big day, and that doesn't include the targets that are PIs. So I had someone leave a YouTube comment, speaking of, and we'll address this, some of these comments more on Thursday and never read the comments at 5:30. But it's like, oh, well, he held him under 100 yards. It really wasn't that bad. I'm like, did you count the PI yardage? Because, well, yes, it doesn't count in the statistics. It sure as hell counts in the game. The ball went from the 22-yard line to the 1 because you got called for a PI in the end zone or whatever it was. I think actually that was the Diami one, but on the other end. But, like, that counted for Washington against Tampa, and the same thing is true on the other side. Like, those first downs count, even if they're not statistically accounted for when you read off the normal stats. So I think that's something to remember, too, is, the physicality. Can you do it without committing penalties? But also, can you find other ways to play? Can you be clean in zone coverage and pass things off and have good communication? And I do think not having to worry about a scrambling quarterback does help you do some of that stuff. But, like, Detroit's not had a scrambling quarterback all year, and they averaged almost 33 points a game. They're gross offensively. You have to limit the number of possessions, and Washington has shown time and time again this season that they can do that. All right. Appreciate everyone who called in that's now waiting on hold. The problem is we needed you to call half an hour ago because now we're out of time, and Mitch Tischler is going to be joining us next. But we might have some time to get back to some calls at 5:15 if y'all want to hang out or if you want to call back. But we'll get to that then. But Mitch joins us next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show, hour number 2. We get all 3 today after yesterday was cut short with some hoops, but we go all the way till 7 o'clock tonight. Right, Anthony? All the way till 7 o'clock tonight?
Yes, we do.
All right, excellent. Love that. And 5 o'clock means it's time for Not My Beat. And on Tuesdays, holy potatoes, everybody. It's Mitch Tischler.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Mitchell was down there in Tampa, of course, and now is with us here on the Hoffman Show. Mitchell, still basking in the glory, and did they let you on the pirate ship second time around this season?
You know what? They didn't let me on the pirate ship the first time around, and quite frankly, I'm happy that we're never going to have to hear those dang cannons again, because those things are quite annoying, to say the least. But basking in the win is a good way to put it. Maybe trying to recover from the win is a second way of putting it. But by Saturday night, man, I can't wait for what this place is going to look like, what Lions Stadium is going to look like, and what the Commanders team is going to look like.
So the atmosphere in Tampa, definitely electric, but there was a ton of Commanders fans. I don't think that will be the case in Detroit on Saturday night. As someone who goes to every game, like, what's the toughest environment you think that they have played in so far this year, and how prepared do you think they are for, pun intended, the Lions' Den?
I very much appreciate the pun. What's the toughest environment they played in this year? Probably the Monday night game against the Bengals. I mean, that was a wounded franchise, a wounded team that was trying to get back, and obviously prime time has been quite a difficult place for old school Washington teams of yore. But I think that was the toughest one. But quite frankly, having a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, I think almost makes you environment proof, if you will. You know, Ford Field is incredibly loud, and we were blast there in 22 for the game, and JP Finley and I sat next to each other in the press box, and by the end of the game, my voice sounded like it does today, because you have to yell at each other next to each other to hear it. However, when you look at Jaden Daniels and his history and all the big games and big environments that he played in college, there's nothing that the NFL is going to throw at him that he hasn't already seen before. Bama, LSU, Saturday night, in Tuscaloosa. There's few environments in any sport that would match that. And so when you talk about kind of the environment and the noise being an issue, certainly it's something that you need to contend with. But when you have a guy who's kind of been there, done that, particularly when it's the quarterback, because on the offensive side is really where that usually manifests itself. I think that you can dismiss it as a little bit less of an overall issue.
Mitch Tischler, co-host of the Beltway Football Podcast, with us here on the Hoffman Show. And Mitchell, for me, sitting on the outside, this is the ultimate house money game. Like, they've won a playoff game, they've broken that streak. They're already so far beyond the expectations that anybody reasonably had for them. And I typically hate they got nothing to lose. They got the same thing in front of them as the Lions, theoretically. Like, they got the same opponents potentially on the way to the Super Bowl. Of course, Washington will have to do it all on the road. Detroit would be able to do it at home. But we know that's not how human psychology works. Like, emotionally, the Lions are the favorite here. But do you think that there's any leaning into that in Ashburn, in that locker room? Or is everyone kind of on the page that Dan Quinn said that they were on last week? And maybe it's different this week versus last week. The Bucs, who they had already gone toe-to-toe with this year and felt very much like they could beat in this newer, better version of themselves, versus a Lions team that's been the best team in the sport this year. But, like, do they kind of look at this as house money, playing free, whatever, or do they put the pressure on themselves of, like, no, we belong here, and is that how they kind of tackle the psychology of playing in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's the pressure of it necessarily, but, there's a lot of different sayings that Dan Quinn has, and they use them in different ways, and one of the ones we've seen all year has been any time, any place, anyone. And something that they had up on the big board today was they have to go through us. And I just thought that was a really good kind of mental space for them to be in. Like, Yeah, the Lions are on paper the better team, but once you get to the playoffs and you end up in this situation, I think you need to stop playing this, underdog attitude and be confident in who you are. And I think that's what you're seeing out of Dan Quinn. He's instilling this, we belong here. This isn't just by chance. You guys worked your butts off to get to this point, and quite frankly, it's on them to beat us, not us to beat them. And I really like that attitude. And kind of one place where I see that, that sort of attitude can kind of help, buoy this team is just flat first quarter stats. The Commanders are third in the NFL in points in the first quarter. Detroit is middle of the NFL. They're 13th. If you're able to get out ahead of this team and you force Jared Goff, put a little pressure on him, have to throw the ball a lot, let that D-line pin back their ears a little bit. There are very direct game scripts where you can look at this as, okay, if Washington does A, B, and C, they're going to win this football game. And despite being 9.5, 10-point underdogs, whatever, the folks in the desert have them pegged at, Jaden Daniels, to me, is the best quarterback in the NFC that is left. And as we know, this is a quarterback league, and anytime you got JD5 on the field, you have a chance to win.
No, I love that. It's one thing for, pundits. I remember one of the first segments we ever did on the show because someone said something that got under my skin, and I was like, I'm nipping this in the bud now. And I was like, there's a difference in punditry and participation. Well, the attitude I have as a pundit, as someone who has no control over the outcome, is very different than the attitude that I want the participants to have if I have a rooting interest. And as a pundit, someone sitting outside, it's like, yeah, of course they're playing with house money. Whatever happens, like, I will deem this season a success. For them on the inside to have that mentality of they have to go through us is awesome. Like, that's one that any coach should stick in their back pocket if they ever get in this situation. As for the actual on-the-field element of it, though, beyond the psychology, there's no doubt the best defense for Washington this week is to do exactly what they did against Tampa and control the ball, dominate time of possession, just not let this Detroit offense that's super potent on the field. How confident are you that they can do that again, whether it is the same way without a running game or that they can get the running game going against a Detroit defense that's not as good as Tampa is up the middle?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, you have to look at some of those Detroit defensive stats and recognize that early on in games all season long, they have gotten up by double digits by the middle of the second quarter and forced teams to get into a negative game script. So their run defensive numbers are going to look very, very good. Also, obviously, Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best defensive ends, pass rushers in the NFL, not just pass rushers, but defensive ends, isn't there anymore. I do think that the run game should have an opportunity to be a little bit more successful, but ultimately, I think you're going to be looking at two coaches that are both going to be coaching in very similar ways. I mean, both teams are very aggressive on fourth down. Both teams really like to control the ball, control time of possession, but do so in a relatively unconventional way. And I think as you look at, the way that Washington wants to control the ball, they should be able to act very similarly to the way they did in Tampa. And honestly, from a defensive perspective, I like the idea of a team going for fourth down on it, fairly often with me, especially with a immobile quarterback who's not going to really give you a dual threat option. I think that gives you a chance to get the ball in plus territory, multiple times a game, and it doesn't have to get every stop on fourth down, but one or two big stops, and that's going to turn the tide of this football game.
It definitely could. And something else that I thought was interesting from the Tampa game that I wonder how this carries over against Detroit is while the Commanders gave up some drives, they often got things to 3rd and long. And unfortunately, they gave up a couple of those. The most notable being that 3rd and 9 Baker Mayfield scramble at the end of the first half that turns into a touchdown drive. And you're like, God, they barely had the ball in the second quarter, and now we're sitting here tied at halftime. That's annoying. All you need to do is get a stop, and you get the ball to start the second half. But there's a lot of 3rd and 9s in the game. There's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 7. Like, there's a lot of that. And for Dan Quinn or Dan Campbell, who are ultra aggressive going for it on fourth down, nobody more so than Campbell, he's not going to go for it at his own 35 if it's 4th and 9. If it's 4th and 2, he might. But I think that is something where Washington's defense at times this year has been really good at, we'll give up a couple of first downs within a drive, but then we ultimately do get the sack or the tackle for loss or something that's a negative play or a stuff type of play that does create a insert late down, third or fourth and long. And if they can just do that, then they stem some of the aggressiveness from Campbell. And Bowles just, I don't think he would have gone for it anyway. That's not who Todd Bowles is, and that's one of the complaints they have in Tampa. But it did limit his opportunities to do the thing that Dan Quinn did, which was go for it on a 4th and 5 or shorter 5 times in the game.
Right. And I think, as you talk about some of those negative plays, I think you have to look a lot in the run game for some of those negative plays. And I know Jahmyr Gibbs is this explosive running back who's extremely difficult to take down. But if you can, he has shown himself to be vulnerable to being strung out to the outside and not quite keep, to continue kind of going east to west instead of north to south. And one of the things that I liked that I saw last week one of the adjustments they made with Bucky Irving was putting Daron Payne or John Allen in those defensive end positions and having a little bit of a bigger body to kind of set that edge. And I think that's something that they can use as a point of emphasis to keep kind of stringing out those runs and allow their linebackers and their safeties to get up on them. Quite frankly, I worry about the passing game. I think, kind of across the board between Jahmyr Gibbs, Laporta, Jamison Williams, I think is going to be a real problem downfield for these guys. And obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown is just a tactician as a route runner. I think the negative plays in the passing game are going to be kind of few and far between, but I do like kind of putting that ball in Jared Goff's hands and not letting him just turn around and hand it off and letting the ground game control things.
So what was said at post game about Marshawn Lattimore? Mitch Tischler is with us, co-host of the Beltway Football Podcast. Of course, he was in Tampa. He's at every single game. You can listen to him and JP Finley on the Beltway Football Podcast multiple times a week on demand wherever you get your pods. And he's with us every Tuesday during the season here on the Hoffman Show. For the Lattimore part of it, I think this week is interesting because Williams and St. Brown are equally dangerous in very different ways, and how you deploy Lattimore is an interesting choice. The choice to play man coverage period this week could be a very interesting choice. But what was said after the game about the day that Marshawn had with the penalties, with the catches given up to Mike Evans, where he clearly did not look like his dominant self, but that's on some level, I guess, to be expected coming off as long of a layoff as he had.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it would be silly for the Bucs to not challenge a corner, any corner, forget the history, forget the names, who has missed most of the season with, hamstring injuries and is getting out there for just a second time in whatever it's been, 7 weeks. So I think that's kind of going to be a theme as we go through this. And I know that folks want to call him a lemon and think that, he's automatically a bad trade. Like, the dude's been fighting an injury, hasn't been on the field much. I think that some struggles should be expected, though obviously you hope not. Post-game, I got to be honest, the Marshawn Lattimore storyline didn't really pop for me. There wasn't a lot of conversation about, the fact that he didn't have as good of a day. One thing that I would point out from it and that I like, we talked about it with like Adam Peters when he drafted Trey Lance in San Fran, and that didn't work out, and they were able to kind of work their way, get away from it before it, before it was detrimental to the team as a whole. I liked what you saw from Joe Witt, where clearly it wasn't working out. They pulled him out. He turned out to not be an every down corner, and they kind of worked him in, with the other guys. And I think that's an important part of what has made this coaching staff successful, is that they're able to identify the guys that can help them immediately, the guys that can help them midterm and long term, and they don't put too much pressure on anyone to step in and be, the one solo savior on either side of the ball.
I think that's a great point. St. Jude's played a lot in that second half, and especially once they got down in the red zone the second time, in part because I think some of the communications and things that maybe Lattimore wasn't as fresh on. Your red zone coverages are a little bit different. Like, let's get a guy in here that's not going to mess up from a communication standpoint. And, Juice did a good enough job. Obviously, there's some other issues in the secondary, but that's because playing secondary in the NFL is really hard. On the offensive side of the ball, last thing for you, Mitch. Detroit is ultra aggressive defensively. That is who they've been. Dan Campbell has probably my favorite quote of any coach this season. In one of his locker room speeches, he just goes, "It doesn't matter who puts on our uniform. Like, we don't change who we are." And that, I was like, that should not be the case, but it is. Like, they are fast, they are physical, they fly around. We know that they are understaffed, though, because of all these injuries. But with kind of their current state of their roster and how much man they play, how aggressive they are, does Washington try to counterpunch with some big swings, being more explosive and push the ball down the field? Or do you think that they have to fight that temptation and stay patient and kind of matriculate the ball the way that they did against Tampa, where they had 5, 10-plus play drives and were able to control the ball like we talked about a little earlier?
A big part that's been missing in this offense that was super successful earlier in the season was kind of the short passing game to running backs. And I think a lot of that comes from Austin Eckler missing the 4 games with the concussion, and he had obviously the concussion earlier in the season. We saw it a little bit last week in Tampa. I think they also used that screen game to De'Ami Brown extremely well, and it's interesting to see De'Ami kind of be successful in that kind of role, because kind of the knock on him early in his career was that he shied away from contact a little bit. But I think with the aggressiveness that you're going to see out of Detroit, particularly the fact that they're going to be playing man a lot, I look for a lot of those screen passes, whether they're out to wide receivers or kind of quick little dump offs to running backs, to be a big part of what can make them successful. Now, the Lions getting back Alex Anzalone in the middle of their defense is tough for Washington, because that guy is really good in those situations. But ultimately, with the pressures that they're going to bring, I think a lot of football teams get caught up with Jaden being a rookie quarterback and want to try and hit him with these exotic blitzes and odd views and looks and different things. And that's something that Jaden has shown to be very, very good at diagnosing and then taking advantage of. And so while I expect the Lions to bring some different looks his way, I think he has a real opportunity to hit some of those screens either to the outside or in the middle of the field.
Mitch Tischler with us here on the Hoffman Show. You can catch the Beltway Football Podcast multiple times per week on demand, plus post-game live. They'll be in Detroit on the Monumental Sports app after the game on Saturday night. And then, Mitchell, we will talk to you next Tuesday. Recover, my friend. How happy are you about this being a Saturday game, considering what your voice sounds like on a Tuesday right now? Getting that Sunday to hopefully relax a little bit.
You know what? Like Dan Quinn says, anytime, any place, anywhere. you get this team into the playoffs, I'm going to be happy to talk till I have nothing left to give.
And hey, well, let's shut it down now, since you have more to give to the pod and to anyone else who wants to talk to you. We appreciate your service here to the Hoffman Show, my friend.
Let's hope we're yelling holy potatoes at the end of the night on Saturday.
Indeed, holy potatoes to you and to all. Thanks, Mitchell. I'll see you. That's Mitch Tischler with us here on the Hoffman Show. Holy potatoes. I have to eat some really hot chicken wings coming up in about 20 minutes. Competition Wednesday on a Tuesday because Anthony's out tomorrow. Plus, it's the Commanders Wednesday today anyway, so it kind of works out. Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels spoke today. You'll hear from them coming up at 6 p.m. But next, let's talk a little bit more about this Commanders run game. Is Brian Robinson actually a problem? Is it something else? Like, what happened against Tampa, and can they get it turned around against Detroit? Logan Paulson, I made him answer all of those questions, and you'll hear those answers next on a Take Command Tuesday on The Hoffman Show. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, I'm going to eat some very hot chicken wings as punishment for losing Competition Wednesday. We'll also pick the upcoming games this weekend. Anthony's last day in the office this week. So we're going to do that coming up. Anthony actually, when we go hit play on what we're about to play for you, he's going to have to go pick up those chicken wings, I do believe. Are you going to get them or am I going to get them?
That's a great question,
I guess I should probably go get them. They're my wings. I lost. Why should you have to go get them just because you're the producer of the show? Feels like a very producer-y type of task, but like if something goes haywire with the buttons, you should be here. And I lost. So I'll go get my own damn wings. And then I gotta open up the sauces and the whole deal, and we'll get them ready. And it's gonna be very hot onesie, more hot onesie than we initially anticipated when we came up with this whole silly thing. But that's coming up at 5:45. Right now, though, normally this is when we do Take Command Tape Tuesday on Jaden Daniels. But the way that we did Take Command this week in our film review, we used the 17-play drive that crossed from the end of the first into the start of the second quarter by Washington as a way to talk about a bunch of different stuff in the game. And it took us a very long time to do. So if you want to hear that and the breakdown of Jaden and how great he was and all of that, you're just going to have to listen to the podcast this week. I'm so sorry to do that to you, but it's very easy to do. Just search Take Command wherever you get your podcasts, and you can get in painstaking detail everything about that drive and how it also kind of illuminated some other things that Washington did well in the game. Then we got into a very nuts and bolts, much more simple discussion about the run game. We're going to play that for you now. We also talked about the defense. That's in the full podcast. But without further ado, Take Command style, here is Logan and I talking about the Commanders' run game, what didn't go well against Tampa, and what they hope to turn around against Detroit. Take Command podcast, Logan Paulson there, Craig Hoffman here. The run game was the one thing in this game, Logan, that did not go well for them offensively. They were able to overcome it. 5 drives of 10-plus plays. They averaged only 2.5 a carry. And that, by the way, their longest run of the day was a 12-yarder that wasn't even really a run. It was a lateral to Austin Eckler that we talked about on that big, long 17-play drive that kind of presents more as a pass play screen, but it goes down in the stat book as a run. Yet they managed to get 35 minutes time of possession and all that great stuff. But you want to be able to run the football. Like, you don't want to have to win this way. Cliff was asked a couple weeks ago, can you win without running the ball? And he was like, yeah, we can, which I thought was a baller answer from Cliff to be like, yeah, my rookie quarterback is good enough to we don't need a running game, but like, you don't want to. So what can they do to get this running game going / what were the issues that prevented it from getting going against Tampa?
Shoot, I mean, I think we talked about in the preview show quite a bit, like Tampa's good at stopping the run. They want to stop the run. They're motivated to do that. The way they play their defense is designed to do that. So it was going to be tough. Like we knew from the jump it was going to be tough. So obviously playing Detroit, because that's fresh in my mind, they're not as good, right? They don't have the same type of personnel up front. They don't have 3 first-round draft picks playing defensive line. They don't have a Hall of Fame linebacker back there. They got some good ones, you know what I mean? But they don't have the same level of skill. They're still good, don't get me wrong, but I think even that kind of stuff is helpful. Like, look at Tennessee, right? How they were able to run the football versus Tennessee, or even at times versus New Orleans. Like, New Orleans is a bad example, but Tennessee is a good one, right? Like, that's a good front, but you're just able to kind of find opportunities, get in a rhythm, and the game plan hits. And I think that's something I see as a possibility versus Detroit. Again, you got to work at it, got to scheme it up, got to make it happen. But when you watch Tampa, like, from the second I watched the film, the first 10 run clips, I was like, tough sledding. And it was, right? Because they're big, they're physical, they're fast up front, they know what they're doing. And so that's part of it. Also, like, the style of runs, how you want to get to it. But my question to you, Craig, and to the fans really is, if it's going to be hard, if it's going to be inefficient, if we're going to have to pour a lot of time and sweat equity into being good at running the football, when I can just call a screen or I can call an RPO, why invest all these man hours and all this time in the week against something that is going to be really hard to do when these other things are better options for me? And I really felt like that's, again, we talked about how people were locked in on the screen game. They know where they're going to. They're locked in on the RPO stuff. They're locked in on the choice routes. They're locked in on the motions and the shifts. Like, you lose some of that putting more time into the run game. And I kind of liked that they went the other way here, which again is, people say, well, you can't do both. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough time in the week to be excellent at both things. And I think they kind of said, hey, we're going to do what we do in the run game. It's not going to be great, but we have these other things to kind of offset some of that. And I think that was ultimately the right decision because they won the game.
I think it's 100% correct. But I also think that Cliff did something really, really smart in this game, which was he found a way to stay balanced because that other stuff starts to dissipate if the other team is like, they've abandoned the run. We don't have to worry about it.
That's a great
point.
But
because they were really, really efficient on the other stuff, they were able to run the football really ineffectively without a whole lot of penalty. And what I mean by that is, okay, let's get 7 yards on first down with a quick game. Let's get it with the screen. Let's get it with something else. And then it's second and 3. Then it's 2nd and 3. Well, now we can run, our GT, we can run duo, we can run inside zone. It can get 0 yards, and it's 3rd and 3. And it's not that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter as much as if we did that on 2nd and 7, and now it's 3rd and long. And so they stayed out of a ton of 3rd and longs, despite the fact that they couldn't run the football, but they also stayed balanced. And so Tampa had to worry about everything at all times, kind of stay true to the we're not going to give up anything in the run mentality. And that left those other options open. And sometimes it was a first down screen. Sometimes they'd run the ball on first down and then be able to get to 3rd and short on 2nd down. But they were just, whether it was so confident, so effective, whatever, maybe both, probably one has to do with the other, of that if we get a no-gain run, we're fine. And there weren't in this game any real, I don't remember writing down 2nd and 15 at all. They stayed out of those really, really bad down and distances by Jaden not taking sacks, by not having a lot of penalties in this game. They did a really good job of staying on schedule, which is how they were able to achieve something, time of possession dominance, that is normally achieved through the run game, and balance, which obviously has to involve the run game, without actually being good at running the football at all. And I think that's a formula that they can / should try to repeat at Detroit if they're not going to be good running the football. But obviously, hopefully just the step down of defense is good enough to have a little bit more efficacy running the football.
No, I think that's a fantastic point. I mean, that's exactly right. And I think when you're looking at this game compared to maybe the Atlanta Falcons game, they just didn't take penalties. There weren't a lot of pre-snap penalties. There weren't a lot of sacks. And we talked about the importance of little decisions in terms of staying on schedule. That's one, but also just playing clean football. And a lot of teams play this bend but don't break style of defense because they expect you to have something negative happen. You have a holding call. You have false start. You have to take a sack. You muff. You have a bad handoff, right? You have a run for a 0-yard gain. And they really didn't do any of that stuff. Even though the runs were bad, they weren't negative runs, which were important, right? And to the balance point you just made. So, and we've made this point before on this show, but I think when they do when they go on these really long drives, it's so rare to see that with the consistency that they've done it, especially the last couple of weeks, and I think it's just, again, a testament to how well coached they are, how well they understand the game plan, and it does let them maintain this semblance of balance and force the defense to attack and be aware of different things, which is extremely important. So, yes, I think you hit that exactly right. And it's just the question then becomes is, can you do that consistently moving forward versus better football teams? Because again, in this game, you get a holding call on one of these drives, one of these long drives, and you're probably punting the football in 3 downs, which is kind of a tough arrow or tough, thread to throw or whatever.
Yeah. By the way, in NFL history, there have been 3 instances of a team having 0 turnovers and 0 punts in a game by a rookie quarterback. Jaden Daniels week 2, Jaden Daniels week 3, wow. Jaden Daniels in the playoffs against Tampa. That's it.
Crazy.
That's the list. We did make fun of Tress Way on the show yesterday, Michael Phillips and I on the radio show, because it's why were you even there? Tress, I apologize. You did do a great job holding.
Did a great job.
All jokes aside, B-Rob, where are we at on him? He averages 1.6 a carry. We talked in that drive how some of these looks are really, really tough. But do they need to take a look at finding a way to keep Chris Rodriguez active and letting him run the football? Because, obviously this is going on a month here where Brian Robinson has not been very effective. But is that just is that a victim of circumstance?
I think it's a victim of circumstance. I think, obviously, yes, I think it's a victim of circumstance. And could you bring Chris Rodriguez and give him more carries? Yes. Is it different, or is there a value add over B-Rob? I'm not sure. And I think one of the things I just point to is running back success is so strongly correlated to offensive line success. And this offensive line, we've talked about ad nauseum how much we like them, how they did a great job in pass blocking situations. But there are times like where it's like you got to run the football and you can't. Like watching Detroit, for example, their offensive line's excellent. And when you got to run the football, they're going to run the football. They're going to win physically one-on-ones. They're going to sink double teams. They're going to move people off the spot, and they're going to be really aggressive with that kind of stuff. This group is not built that same way, right? And I think that's something that, again, it leads to muddy and cloudy looks at times. And I think that's part of the issue that you're seeing with B-Rob the last couple of weeks is people have kind of tuned in to what Cliff wants to do. And as a result, they've kind of adjusted their game plans a little bit. And as a result, you see a lot more free runners in the hole, a lot of messy looks, a lot of blitz looks, a lot of line stunts to take away some of that zone read stuff. And as a result, you've stressed the offensive line even more because the movement and the pre-snap stuff that's going on. And also you've just presented different things for the running back to deal with. So again, I don't think it's B-Rob's fault. I think it's a lot of just defenses getting wise. And hopefully, like you said, you find a wrinkle, like again versus Atlanta, they were able to find a couple wrinkles where he's able to get some gashes and look like B-Rob from earlier in the season. But I think for fans, it's important to understand like he has not been getting clean looks, and that's a little bit on the offensive line, it's a little bit on him, but it's also I think defense is just adjusting to what they've been doing offensively from a run game standpoint.
Yeah, I'd be open to it if you can make the roster mechanics work because Chris was really effective. But, like, is it worth whatever other moves you have to make? That I don't know. I'd have to look at it deeper. And perhaps we will on Thursday because that's our preview show. But we're running out of time, and we want to talk about the defense a little bit. So continuing forward we go. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube, and we're living dangerously because it is time for Competition Wednesday. Competition Wednesday this week on a Tuesday because Anthony is going to be out this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so we had to do this before he left. And this is going to be painful for me potentially in a couple of ways. Because one, Anthony, let's quickly run through the results of last week. Then we will make our picks for Divisional Wildcard Weekend. And before I make each pick, I'm going to have to eat some of the wings that folks on YouTube can now see. I created a wing cam over here. And yes, that is Ninja Napalm, one of the sauces from Hot Ones that is considered a, let's see, where they have their heat scale. I believe this is a 7 out of 10. These are both sauces that have appeared before Da Bomb. So they're 7th out of 10 sauces on Hot Ones. And so that's this group of wings right here. And then over here, I have, this one says 4 out of 5 heat. So this is Ginger Goat Tropic Star. It has mango, lemongrass, and star anise in it. So I'm going to eat, before making one of my picks, a wing out of one of these, and then a wing out of the other before making my second pick, because there's only 4 games this weekend, Anthony.
Oh, yeah.
There was some blue cheese over here. I'm lactose intolerant. That's not going to help me. So this is what I get for losing multiple weeks of hot ones, of hot wings being the punishment on the wheel of death that's over there. It's actually the wheel of mediocre punishment. They call them the wings of death on Hot Ones, Anthony. So the good thing is I'm not getting to the death part. The part where everyone dies is the wings that are after this. The Da Bomb, which is just a terrible sauce that is both hot and has no redeeming culinary qualities. Compared, everyone who eats it is like, this tastes like garbage and it's melting my face. Nor the 2 sauces beyond that. So I think I'm going to be okay. I've been enjoying one that's a 5 out of 10 at home, but who knows just how much extra heat we're going to get here. But Anthony, I actually have more bad news for me first. Last week's results.
Oh, man. Don't tell me you went over again.
Anthony, I did, which you shouldn't even get to celebrate because you went 1-2. We were terrible on the games that we picked, which is hilarious because I think I might, had I picked your games, I think I would have done better picking your games. And I don't know how it would have gone if we flipped. But okay, you got the first pick, and you were able to ultimately set kind of the slate here.
Well, boo-hoo, Craig. You lost again.
Had I picked your games, just based off of what I did on the Monday show, I think I would have went 2-1. But alas, I went 0-3 because I had the Chargers -3. They lost outright. I had Pittsburgh covering 9.5. They didn't do that, right? Nope.
They lost by 14.
They lost by 14. You had Denver. Oh, sorry, you had the Chargers covering. You had Denver covering as well. So you started 0-2. I had Pittsburgh, and then. Oh wait, hold on. Wait, Anthony, I might have this backwards. Because we actually tied. I take that back. We tied. Oh,
where's the tiebreaker?
We didn't have a tiebreaker. Because it's the playoffs. Oh my God. Okay, I feel better now. A little bit.
How do we tie?
So you had the Chargers -3. That's 0-1. I had Pittsburgh plus 9.5. Denver plus 8.5 for you. You then had Philly minus the 4.5. So you got the Philly game right.
Yes,
I got Washington right. And then I lost on Minnesota last night. Had Minnesota won, I would have gone 2-1. But Minnesota got whacked. And thus, that brings us to Divisional Weekend, where there are 4 games. I need to get a line for the... Actually, I need to just pull it up, the lines for all of these. But Anthony, because you won most recently when we didn't tie, you get first pick.
First pick, I'm going to take the Ravens over the Bills. I think the Ravens are going to win this game by more than 1. So give me the Ravens -1.
Okay. Simple enough. Anthony's just going for the big game right off the bat. Baltimore -1. All right, hold on. I have too many things open at this point. Okay. Competition Wednesday. AH. Baltimore -1. Okay. Should I eat a Ninja Napalm or a Ginger Goat first? I think Ginger, I don't know. They're both potentially pretty
I think
intense.
you should do the napalm one because I think that's the one I smell. Like I smell the wings through the glass.
Yeah, I think it's that one. All right. Bon appetit, everybody.
Uh-oh.
Ninja Napalm.
Here goes Craig. Good gracious, Craig. You took a vicious bite, man.
That's hot.
It's hot?
It tastes good, but that's hot.
I think you're turning
I'm starting to
a little
sweat
red.
immediately. That's good, though. And, buddy, I'm hungry.
I hope you have your taste buds intact after you finish these wings. And I think you are hungry because you're not taking any prisoners, Craig. You are doing the damn thing over there. You are crushing, my sir.
I'm going home later this week to see my parents and making my father proud. Not leaving meat on this, but that's actually more than I normally would, but I'm on camera right now. I'm not gonna be a savage. That's hot. I've got some feeling to it. I'm definitely sweating.
Hey, yo, this is actually hilarious.
What's my heart rate right now? There's no chance. Man, my heart rate's at 90 right now.
Let's see how you do, man.
That's got some smoke, boys and girls. Whoo, it continues to grow. All right.
Would you like some water?
I have some. I'm just going to be a boss. Kansas
Okay.
City -7.5. I think Houston's terrible. I know what they did last week. Good gracious. I know what they did last week. I know their defense is really good. But Mahomes won't make some of the same mistakes that Herbert did. I think Kansas City's offense has actually turned a corner. Give me the Chiefs -7.5. Anthony, your pick. Okay, I lied. I'm going to take a little bit of water.
You're struggling over there. I see it
I
in
still
your
have to do a
face.
radio show. I could be a hard ass about it. I'm going to be a hard ass about it. I'm putting the cap back on my water.
Okay, Craig. Yeah.
Anthony, make your pick.
All right.
Are you going
so
Washington?
This next game.
Are you going Philly and the Rams?
I think I'm going to take the Commanders to cover the -10, Craig. -10 is crazy.
That's an enormous number. That's a stupid.
Did it open up as a 21-point favorite?
No, not 21.
Oh, that was fake. Okay, I thought I read some fake news then. It probably was.
You must have read some fake news. It was 8.5 earlier in the week. I picked him to cover on Monday at 8.5. I definitely take 10. Why is this getting hotter as I talk?
Dude, my eyes are like burning over here because of, I guess, how strong it is.
I definitely put a fair amount of sauce on that wing too. I sauce these things proper. All right, so first I have to eat one of these ginger goat wings.
Oh yeah.
Bon appetit, everybody. Woo!
I hope this one calms you down a little bit.
Also, I just realized that you haven't been on the screen, so I apologize to everyone who wants to see Anthony. We're back on the screen now.
All right.
Ginger goat is the flavor. It's apparently 4 out of 5 on the little flame scale. I mean, I'm going to pick a football game.
Here goes nothing, man. This guy is over here. He's been a trooper. He hasn't drank any water. He doesn't have any sauce like ranch or blue cheese because he's lactose. So he's short on that. But man, how's that one? Is it bad? Is it as bad as the napalm?
It's hot. That's a delicious flavor. I did bring fries, so like I did get fries. That way I can eat some of those, and thus I'm not going to be messed up for the rest of the show. But although Anthony like suddenly answered the phone, I'm like, is there a medic calling? What caused Anthony to just go answer the phone? All right, since Anthony can't talk into a microphone, one of us has to. I'm gonna take the Rams to cover 6.5. Oh, there it goes. Now we're getting some real heat. I'm going to take 6.5 is a big number. I know it's a shorter week for the Rams, but the one thing, this could go either way, because I actually think that the Rams pass rush could negate some of the offensive line play of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, that's a
But
bold statement.
there's also a chance that it goes the other way around, that the Eagles' offensive line negates the Rams' pass rush, making their defense kind of useless. And then what can they do defensively? Or what can they do offensively to try to keep up with Philly? I would say the other part of this, sorry, I have sauce on my lips, which is what I was actually really afraid of. Got to make sure I don't get anything in my eyes. What was I saying? I understand hot ones on a fundamental level now that I did not.
You were
before.
talking about.
Oh, yeah.
catches.
The Rams. So the Rams are fine just throwing the ball underneath to Puka all day and let him run over people. The Eagles want you to throw it short. So that's a fun. Like, this game is a very, very fun chess match. And Sean has struggled against Vic Fangio in the past. So definitely going to be interesting. Okay. I did it. Those are our picks. I'm going to finish these chicken wings. I'm going to eat some of these fries to cool down, if you will. But I'm gonna eat one more each of each wing. Anthony, you want to try some?
No.
Fine.
Well, I don't. How's the garlic? I'm not trying the napalm one because that one looks insanely hot.
This one I don't feel like was as hot, and it was deliciously flavorful.
I might go with the garlic one. I'm not going.
It's not garlic though. It's ginger curry.
Oh, ginger curry goat, right?
Yeah, it's ginger goat is the flavor. It's really good. But anyway, I'm gonna keep eating wings, and then when we get back, you're gonna hear from Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels. So that's that, and hopefully next time, Anthony has to spin that wheel and do something dumb, because this. I'm glad it was entertaining. This is exactly what I had in mind. I will say, like I'm hurting a little bit, but this is a mediocre punishment. I'm sweating. It's definitely hard to think straight, but it was hopefully still entertaining. And if it wasn't, at least you're not eating very, very hot wings and your lips aren't on fire and you still have an hour of radio to do. It's a Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Holy hell. Anthony, a hot sauce with the name Napalm in it. Handle with care. Wow.
How you feeling over there, Craig?
I had a second one in the break. I might have the third one, the curry one, the ginger curry. That one's delicious. Bro, that Ninja Napalm is hot.
Dude, your eyes are glossy.
My eyes are glossy, watering. Yep. I'm sweating.
But now you want to drink water. There you go, Craig. There you go.
I have to be able to do. They don't pay me to eat chicken wings, Anthony. They pay me to do a radio show. And I'm going to need some more water for sure because I'm almost out. Oh my God. I mean, that was fun. I can't wait to watch it back and hope that it's as entertaining as it felt. For all I know, I just look like a total buffoon. Whew. Yeah. So those are your hot wings, everybody. We did the bet. We did the thing. And now I have to try to do the rest of a radio show. I also feel like I
100 push-ups or eat those wings again.
I think 100 push-ups.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't hurt, but it does. My face feels not like my face. Does that make any sense?
A little bit.
I also feel, one thing I really messed up on, though, is, like, it's chicken wings. I feel like I have chicken wing, like, shrapnel in my teeth.
That's the worst.
I'm trying to get it out, but every time my tongue hits my teeth, some of the hot sauce is still on my teeth. My mouth gets hot again. Anyway, it's time for the Pick Six at 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick Six at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level, and build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
Oh, man, you want to get your heart rate up? You can do a couple of different things. You can exercise, you can eat ridiculously hot chicken wings, or you can watch a Commanders game.
Number 1.
The Cardiac Commanders strike again. So Dan Quinn asked today how he feels at the end of some of these close games.
No, it's awesome. It's like the best part of coaching because it's like right with everything on the line, and it's my most favorite part of it all. Like being like 10 toes down with guys that you really love and care about. Like it's the best. And so doing that kind of hard with really good people, like that's honestly as fun as it gets. And so they don't always work out in your favor, but just being in that arena and that type of competitive, man, like you cannot feel more alive than in that spot. When the anticipation and the competitiveness is that high, it's really
real fun. Real fun. I always like that much more as a player than as a coach, because as a player, you have control. As a coach, you're just hoping that you did all the right stuff, and you can have a level of confidence and calm, but ultimately it's not your call what happens. You can just send your players out there. Now, when one of your players is Jaden Daniels, I'd imagine that's a lot more fun. When did Dan Quinn realize that he had this level of poise and how that poise has actually even progressed throughout this season?
Best first, like I would say, closing time moment for him. It was in our second game against the Giants, and we were really loving to kick field goals back then. I mean, we were on it. And I believe we were tied. You have to check and see if that's true. But going into that space, like just a absolute locked-in person, not any differential, hey, whatever you think's best. There wasn't any nervous, throwing the ball around. It was just, whew. And so that's, probably the opening page of, the journey of that here. And there's been a lot of chapters in between that have earned that. But that would have been the first chapter. That in that moment of his first drive to go win a game, like, man, he had played that thing hundreds of times. So it wasn't a hope or, this should be fun. It was like, this is going to go down. So that was probably chapter 1.
Many chapters since, but that was the game where Austin Seibert kicked 7 field goals, and it was like, the Commanders have fixed their kicking problems. Turns out there was more steps in that journey, and Zane Gonzalez, of course, doinks them in to the divisional round.
Number 2.
In the divisional round, they'll face Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. So, what has Dan Quinn perhaps taken from Dan Campbell that he has implemented in D.C.?
Well, one, I think he's done a fantastic job. And so just you see the play style and then identity. And those are the things as a coach, John, that you're really, want to make sure that it's rock solid and crystal clear. And so, we've certainly followed him. And also having Lance here, who came from Detroit, gave insights onto how things turn and why. And so, it was all really beneficial.
And then with guys like Zach and Bobby, has their impact made?
So, play style. That, to me, is the number one thing that if I'm watching a Dan Quinn or a Dan Campbell team, I notice. Of course, from a game management standpoint, there's all the fourth down stuff. So, Dan Quinn asked today on being more aggressive and teams doing that now in a way that was not the case when he was the head coach in Atlanta the first time around that he was a head coach.
Yeah, it's definitely different, and it has to do a lot with your team, too, in terms of how you play. But, we had known that from an efficiency standpoint, they're excellent at it. We're excellent at it. So obviously, big parts of the game to go through it. So it has changed a lot, Ben. You're right to know that, maybe a model at one time has changed. And that's kind of like one of the cool parts about football, man, where things evolve and change and going. And so you want to be bold without being reckless and finding the right spaces, what the opponent does, what you guys do. So it's not one size fits all, but where you're at in the game, what do you need? So it's definitely, moved from middle of it to, near the top of the game making, game decisions.
And Quinn, we talked about, can we get a little more Dan Campbell in or Dan Quinn? He's had that in this 6-game winning streak. He has been way more aggressive going for it on fourth down, avoiding short field goals, and just saying, hey, in defense, if we don't get this, it's up to you. But when you have the best fourth down conversion rate in the NFL in 25 years, when it's about your team, well, that becomes a lot easier to then continue to go for it.
Number 3.
Divisional round weekend, when you're the lowest seed remaining, means you get the team that's coming off the bye. Detroit has had a week off. They played, obviously, the very important final game of the regular season to get this week off. So what's it like playing this Detroit team, and what's it like preparing for them knowing that they're coming off the extra rest?
No different from our end. And just in terms of the what ifs, you don't go there. They've got a huge playbook. So for us to, draw some stuff up in the dirt and say this might happen, no way, no can do. And so there's plenty of stuff that they have that we've got to really be rock solid and ready. Like run game's excellent. The play back pass that goes off of that is excellent. So the matchups that we have to dig into. So more than anything, our consistency does come down to us. It's that communication to go, and communication is big. All the shifts and motions they have, the crowd noise. It's an absolutely fantastic, place that'll be lit. And so those are the things that we have to put our time and attention on, the things that we can control.
Got to stay the same. That has been Dan Quinn's message all season long, and it doesn't surprise me to hear that. They're on an extra rest. Okay, what are we going to do about it? We're just going to go out there and play football. And by the way, Commanders are on a short week because they go Sunday to Saturday. And last question for DQ that we'll hear before we take a break, come back for part 2 of our Pick 6 is on if his approach to the playoffs has changed at all during his career. He's had a lot of experience. He's had some really tough losses. He's also won a bunch of games. You don't get to a Super Bowl unless you win playoff games. So he's done that, even if when he got there, that was probably the most heartbreaking loss of his career and of most coaches' career. So has there been a change in his approach?
Yeah, for sure. And we were talking about Dave's role, being a significant part of that. And going back to Ben's point, in 10 years, a lot has changed in terms of how we go about things to do that. But yeah, I certainly learned a lot going through that process, learning it and saying, okay, this would be some things that I would do different. Those changes they began in the off season. The amount of times I've spent in certain spots. But as far as playoffs go, every game's a championship game. And that's what makes it so much fun because you can't place one versus the other. Man, for us, all there is Saturday night. That's all, it's just that. And so it's not down the line or down the road. And so being in that fight Saturday night, we've earned it, but that's the only fight we're in. So we're going after it as hard as we can.
Saturday night, 8:15, going to be fun. Pre-game, well, kind of, we've already started. We're getting you ready all week long, but mid-afternoon we'll have coverage live and local here on the Team 980 starting at 3. When we get back, you'll hear not only more from Dan Quinn, but from Jaden Daniels as well. But first, let's get an update on the latest in the world of women's sports presented by Wawa. Chicken how you want it at Wawa with customizable, crispy, or roasted chicken sandwiches. Pick 6 at 6 continues here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. There are more chicken wing updates. We'll get to them 6:30. If you've been with us, we'll update how my face is feeling. We'll update where my heart rate is. We'll update the other foods I've eaten to stem the tide of my face feeling like it was falling off there for a second, thanks to picking football games incorrectly. Anthony?
I love that for you, Craig.
Yeah, because you were the one who picked them correctly.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, moving on. Continuing on with our Pick 6 at 6, biggest Commanders notes of the day. By the way, today, Dan Quinn, Jaden Daniels. Tomorrow typically is the day that you get them, but because the Commanders are playing on Saturday, they bump everything up. So tomorrow you'll hear from Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt Jr. in this slot. But we continue with more thoughts on the Cardiac Commanders, and those thoughts come from Jaden Daniels.
Number 4.
Jaden is the orchestrator of so many of these comebacks, all but the one against Dallas, and there's just something to having that chance in the final minute to be able to win a football game, and that seems to bring the absolute best out of him, and he was asked about that today.
I mean, it's like kind of what he says, what you live for. It's what you kind of play the sport for. To when it's time to go out there and make plays, you're going to see who rises to the occasion and make plays. So, we kind of thrive there. Obviously, we would rather go out there and win by 20. But when those situations come up, that's what DQ and them preach so much, and they teach us about situational football. So we're always prepared for those moments.
And that's the thing. The mental, psychological side of it, those guys are ready and they've done it. But there's also a schematic excellence, an execution and game management excellence that they've had. And Jaden was asked about that element of it as well, that preparation for late game situations.
I think you kind of just see how much time you're going to get with kind of the clock. You can get the ball back at this amount of time. Obviously, bearing if a turnover or something doesn't happen. But I mean, it's kind of just staying in the moment, not worried too much about what the outcome could be, what the the end of the score, what could happen there. It's like, hey, when we get an opportunity to go out there and you got to go out there and make some plays, let's do it.
And they've done it time and time again. Next up, Detroit.
Number 5.
Jaden asked about, as you would imagine, the Detroit defense as he prepares for the Lions on Saturday night.
Yeah, good defense. They get their hands on the ball, obviously, with Kirby and I'll call him BB, but Brian Branch. Obviously, up front, what they could do, create pressure, play some man coverage because they trust their guys on the outside. It's going to be a challenge for us.
I think it's a huge challenge, and part of it is going to be an exercise in patience. Terry's going to have one-on-ones a lot in this game. When do you send him deep? When do you throw those deep balls? How often do you take your shots? It's really tempting against man coverage to just dial it up. But can you actually be patient and just create, some chaos underneath? Run your mesh concepts, run your spot concepts, or I guess not your spot concepts, but run your stuff out of bunches that get you those easy spot routes underneath. With some traffic in front that make it easy to see, okay, yeah, this guy's going to spring free or not. You run those man beaters, and some of them have deeper options, and sometimes it's just pick your matchup and knowing when to pick it and when to just say, hey, let's check it down to the back who's in man coverage on a linebacker, and maybe he can make that guy miss in space. There's a lot of, I think, coaching on philosophy of how aggressive you need to be this week, and that is coupled with the play calling, and I think that's going to be an interesting chess match to watch between Cliff Kingsbury and Aaron Glenn. As for Dan Quinn's role in all of it, what does he see from a Lions defense that ranks pretty well in a whole lot of categories and is getting their defensive coordinator head coaching looks?
Lots of man-to-man, aggressive, and I think the third downs, with Aaron and their crew has been really rock solid and strong. But those would be some things that stand out to me of things that they're excellent at.
I think the fact that they get those guys playing hard, playing fast, playing physical through all the injuries is really, really remarkable. It's just one of the most impressive coaching jobs to me that any coordinator has done all season, because they have shut down some really good offenses as they've battled through. Now, yeah, did Matthew Stafford get him at one point this year? Sure. Have some other guys had some okay days or some even good days? Yes. But they've pretty much always done enough, and they've in fact at times, including that game against Minnesota to close out the season, just done an exceptional job. Something that Dan Quinn certainly took notice of as well.
It's really a remarkable job, I thought, by Aaron and their defensive staff. It's not an easy thing to do, but one thing that has really I've respected is so many times when you see a team have injuries, they change to play differently or let's play more of this, which they never did. This is how we get down. And I thought, what a great message by Aaron to say, this is who we play, and they weren't going to let one set of circumstances take them out of that. And so I thought there's some boldness and confidence that goes with that. And so I think it's a great lesson.
Just be you. If you have a strong identity, you can fit people into that. And Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn have done a fantastic job of living that. I don't know that every coach can do that, but they have.
Number 6.
The result, a hungry, rabid fan base that is finally getting some of what they've been desperate for so long. The environment in Detroit is going to be just absolutely electric, and that's going to make the pre-snap communication extraordinarily important for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of just getting on the ball, getting set, not really just moping around. So we have time to see the defense, to see if we need to make a check or, we need to communicate protection and stuff like that. So it kind of just goes with our urgency and how we approach the line of scrimmage each and every play.
The other thing that I think is interesting is Washington plays this no huddle basically all the time, which forces a lot of communication for defenses as well, not in a huddle. So it's a lot of hand signals. It's a lot of talking. And Washington, that's their normal. But just because you're not going fast, the no huddle still requires a high level of communication. Because, when they're no huddle, Washington could snap it at any time. If they want to get on the ball, go, they can. But often they wait and kind of have the same timing as if they had gotten in a huddle. They're just communicating in a different way. They're used to doing that. I don't know how much, obviously there's plenty of communication that does happen, but because they're used to the hand signals and some of the other ways they communicate, okay. Detroit playing whisper down the lane, they're used to playing in their own home environment as well, and a pretty raucous crowd that knows, but typically that's when another team, they get a chance to huddle up and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a very, very interesting part of this chess match as well. Of course, Jaden has a huge help in having Tyler Biotish back. How important was that on Sunday, and will it be on Saturday night?
Extremely important. Just somebody that I talk to daily about different looks that we see, whether that's run game protection, stuff like that. So just be able to be on the same page so we see something we already know, like, hey, this is look, let's do this protection, let's go here, let's maybe flip this protection and go this way.
And for Jaden, playing in a loud, raucous environment is nothing new. And, there's a lot of stuff from college that doesn't really roll over to the NFL. You're not going to get a whole lot more raucous and loud than Saturday night in Tuscaloosa or the Swamp or some of these other SEC environments. So is that something that Jaden innately was able to deal with from day one in some of those environments, or is it something he learned how to manage over time?
I think you kind of just get used to it, but obviously it's something new to me, and I heard Detroit is very electric, so I'm excited for their fans to come out and bring some juice, because I know it's a very passionate fan base, and obviously rightfully so with the team that they're having. So I know it's going to be loud in there, so we got to go out there and be prepared, ready for the crowd noise.
Again, Saturday night, we'll have our pregame coverage all day Saturday on the Team 980. So if you're driving around getting ready for the game, make sure you lock us in either on your radio or on the free Odyssey app. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, we haven't had a chance through 2+ days to take a look back at the rest of the games in the NFL from the weekend. So a quick look around the NFL next, and then real things to wrap us up here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Oh, man. We're just going to survive the last 25 minutes of the show, Anthony.
Is your stomach hurting, Craig?
I feel unsettled, Anthony. That's the best way to describe it. Stomach's okay as of right now. Afraid that could change eventually. If you're just tuning in, about 50 minutes ago, I paid off the Competition Wednesday bet that I had to pay off, which was I had to eat some hot wings that we considered pretty spicy, right? Our level that we set was the wing sauce level before Da Bomb on Hot Ones. And so what I did was I actually ordered the sauces from Hot Ones. And what I have learned is some sauce number 7s are very different than other sauce number 7s. And the one that has napalm in the title, stunningly, was hot as hell. And I had 2 wings of that and also the one called a ginger goat. I actually had 3 wings of the ginger goat because that one was genuinely delicious. That was good. Like, it had heat to it. Like, I had another one in the break between the Pick 6 segments. But I also had I think also what I'm feeling right now, Anthony, is I then ate like an entire order of fries. And now I just feel like the weight of the fries is upon me.
Yeah.
So my nervous system got frayed by the pepper, like the hotness, sweating, the whole deal. Your body, like, it's a chemical reaction. It's not a sign of weakness. That's science, baby. And then I had a lot of fries, so now I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to sit down here and talk about the rest of the games of the weekend.
Good thing we only have 20 more minutes.
That is good, Anthony. That is good. About 20 minutes too many. But, yeah. By the way, I'm just going back. It wasn't anything too crazy said in the chat. We had some people saying, "Yeah, you gotta have the milk." I was one. We don't have any milk. It's a radio station.
I thought you can't drink milk.
And well, that was gonna be thing number 2. I can't drink milk. Although there are the lactose-free milks. There are some good ones out there. I should have. Fairlife makes one that's also very high in protein.
Is it Lactaid?
There's the Lactaid, but the Fairlife has one. There's a couple others. I should have come prepared. Instead, I was like, I'll get French fries. The first French fry I ate, Anthony, like it was no longer temperature hot. My fries, by the time I got to them, were kind of soggy and whatever. But I don't know, like it didn't even taste good. It was like so hot still because my mouth had been on fire. So eventually, my mouth cooled down enough that the fries were helpful. I hope.
Love that for you, Craig.
I hate this all for me.
I'm glad I didn't have to endure what you're enduring right now.
I think that would have been hilarious.
It would have been painful. One, because
you don't like spicy food.
I could really smell the wings through this glass. Like, I haven't even been in that same room, and my eyes were watering. So, had they been close to me?
When I poured the Ninja Napalm sauce in the bowl to sauce those, I was like, I think I'm in trouble here.
Yeah.
I do think that this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
And I was right. That wing sauce is hot. But it also, like, it wasn't terrible. You know, like, it was an experience, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh my God, I'm in pain. It was just kind of like, oh, this is happening to me, which in a way was good. But like Rachel texted me and she goes, is this something, like, is it going as you expected or is it worse? And I was like, it's about 10% worse than I expected. I expected it to be hot because that's the point. But that second one really was a different level. If I had just had the one wing and then been like, oh, these ginger goat ones are actually pretty good, I'm gonna have the rest of these, I would have been fine. But I didn't feel like one wing was enough to pay off the bet. I felt like 2 wings worth of each sauce was the correct amount because I had 2 losses stacked up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a man of my word. And that second one, holy potatoes, that one was hot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was also because I did the one into the other. That might have been part of it. But I did take some video of that, so there will be an extended cut version on YouTube eventually. I'm going to try to also have old Tony edit that down into some kind of digestible TikTok situation. So get your TikToks while you can, boys and girls.
Do you really think TikTok has gone away?
So I actually asked Tony about this the other day, and he's like, well, what's going to happen is you just can't update the app. So, like, TikTok's actually not going to go anywhere the way the current rules are written, but you won't be able to, like, if you don't have it, you can't get it. And there'll be no update. So if you get a new phone, you won't be able to download TikTok.
Oh, man.
There's also a chance that it gets resolved in 5 days afterwards because the company sells to someone. So,
yeah.
I do not think it will be a long-term problem. I do think that the effort that we have put in to grow the TikTok following will all be for naught. By the way, Instagram's blowing up a little bit. Almost 1,000 followers already. I started that thing like in December.
People love TikTok, though.
They do. They do.
I'm not there yet, though, Craig.
If you want to follow me, Anthony, when you get there, at Craig Hoffman on the TikTok, I think. Just search my name. I'll pop up.
Yes, sir.
Hoffman.sports on Instagram. YouTube at Craig Hoffman. And right here on the radio, I'm at the Team 980. But you knew that because you're listening right now. All right. I feel like I'm starting to sweat again. My body's like going through cycles here, Anthony. Wing-induced, pepper-induced cycles.
I'm praying for you, Craig.
I'm also out of napkins. I went through a lot of napkins. So I wiping my face off, blowing my nose, making sure that nothing got in my eyes. Because that's the thing. It's like once I wiped off my face around my mouth, I had to throw that napkin out so I didn't accidentally get something in my eyes. So there's that. Anyway, we're supposed to go around the NFL. We'll quickly touch on some other stuff around the NFL next, and then we'll do real things. It's the Hoffman Show. What are you smiling at, Anthony? Is this something that we're about to play in Real Things, or is it me just struggling to the end of the show?
Last thing in Real I added something from Friday we didn't get to play. I had to listen to it back.
Okay, I'm excited for that. Real quickly, let's do like 60 seconds apiece on the other games from the weekend, because we just haven't had time to do such a thing. And so 60 seconds apiece on the other games because they deserve our attention, and we wound up talking about this stuff a lot. And we gave the Texans no chance, and then they whooped the absolute crap out of the Chargers. I will say, this is why you listen for the analysis, not just the picks. Because I did say, Anthony, there's only one way that the Texans win this game. Their defense is dominant, and then you hit a couple of big plays to Nico Collins. And their defense was something greater than dominant, and they sure hit a couple of big plays to Nico Collins. And then Justin Herbert threw more interceptions in this game, or was intercepted more in this game than he had the entire season, 4-3. And lo and behold, the Texans whipped the ever-living crap out of the Chargers.
He put up an all-time stinker, Craig.
But I don't know that it was all him.
It wasn't all on him. Will Disley dropped the pass. One of them went through McConkey's hand.
Like, that ball's high, but it hit him in the hands. And, like, those balls get, picked all the time.
Yeah.
Or don't get picked all the time. Like, those balls ricochet off defenders' hands because you have the double ricochet situation. Like, these are the things that happen in NFL football games. So, just a weird one. But the Texans, man, like, their defense is nasty. I don't know if it's going to be enough against Kansas City, who's a much, much better offense. Not to mention they're a better defense than the Chargers. But, yeah, I do think that, sorry, Texans. Chargers, I'd be really excited if I was a Chargers fan. I think the future is very, very bright.
Yeah.
They don't have very much talent, and they did what they did this year. Steelers and Ravens. Man, that first half was nasty. And Pittsburgh is just in a terrible spot as a franchise. They're never going to be bad enough with Tomlin to bottom out. And they're going to have to, like, for them, I heard this thought the other day, like, they need to pull, like, a Matthew Stafford trade, like the Rams did, where they need to give up serious draft capital to go acquire a veteran quarterback and see if you can win it all in the next couple of years. The problem is I don't know who that guy is.
Dak Prescott?
Dude, Dallas is not taking. I mean, I guess maybe if they were to get Dion and then draft Shador or something, but like Dak, I think it's $101 million in dead cap money if they trade him.
Wow, that stinks.
Yeah. So Dak ain't going nowhere. He would be the closest guy, but his contract is pretty prohibitive. And I don't think Jerry's trading Dak.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do know that the Ravens did what they should have done and given the ball to Derrick Henry and allow him to lead them and will them to victory, even though Lamar showed up too. But, dude, it's the playoffs. Run that boy, Derrick Henry.
Sure did, and they'll see if they can run it on Buffalo again this weekend. That's who they get, thanks to the Bills kicking the absolute crap out of the Broncos. Broncos started real well. First drive, bomb from Bo Nix to Franklin, the rookie from Oregon. Got that duck connection. It's like duck, goose. And then the Bills are like, haha, silly geese. 31-7. Josh Allen just doing Josh Allen stuff. So efficient. 20 of 26. That fourth down that he hits to Ty Johnson is crazy. That's one of the craziest catches we've ever seen. James Cook, 23 carries, 120 yards, and touchdown. Like, the Bills team's really good, man. This is going to be a great divisional weekend. I know there's a couple of lines that are sideways, but I think these are all going to be good games. And this Buffalo-Baltimore game, I don't know. I think there's a chance that Baltimore does what they did to Buffalo earlier in the year, but there's also a chance that Josh Allen just goes ham, and this is an epic shootout, 42-40 type of game where either team could come out on top.
Yeah, it's going to have to be Josh Allen, willing the team to victory, because I don't think you're going to be able to run on that Baltimore front. So Josh Allen, Curtis Samuel, Amari Cooper. Curtis Samuel actually got in the box too, which was good to see because, we know he is dynamic, but
he plays a role for them
for this Buffalo Ravens game. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. As for the Broncos side of it, again, like they so overachieved based off what they should have been this year with the fourth quarterback off the board in that draft, someone that a lot of people thought they overdrafted in $80 million in dead cap money. They are going to be able to actually add players now, and clearly they know what to look for on some of these guys. Their young players have been really good, so salute to the Broncos on a fantastic season. Packers, Eagles. Oh, man. if you told me the Packers defense was going to play like that, I would have said, well, they got a shot. They had no shot. They got dump trucked because their offense was terrible. Now, in fairness to their offense, they had dudes dropping like flies. They had Christian Watson before the game. Jaden Reed goes out in this game. Romeo Doubs goes out in this game. And Jordan Love is clearly not right. Like, they just have to hope that Love is a very different player next year if healthy for an entire offseason and regular season, or at least most of a season. Because the banged-up version they got of him is just not the guy that they paid all that money to. But they also need to get some veterans in there. They have the youngest roster in the league 2 years in a row. Get some guys in there that can be stronger leaders. They actually just said today, we expect Love to be more of a leader. Don't do that. Like, sure, expect that from him. But I think getting some other guys in there would be really, really helpful. Philly, I don't know what to do with them. They're back in, like, they're frustrating, but they just produce mode. They scored 22. Saquon could have scored a touchdown at the end, make it basically 30. So there's that. And then last night, the Rams just kicked the ever-living crap out of the Vikings. First half, thoroughly dominant. That was really all they needed. 27-9, the final score. Vikings have a big decision at quarterback. They drafted J.J. McCarthy last year, of course. And then and actually, I said Nix was the fourth. Nix was the fifth guy off the board at the 12th pick for the Broncos. McCarthy was fourth to the Vikings, and he is going to be coming off the injury. Do they re-sign Darnold for one more year? I think that's kind of the most experts think that that's the right move, but going to be an interesting offseason for Minnesota. All right, last but not least, Anthony, because you were giggling so hard, we must get to real things real people said in your real microphone.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, so Snoop Dogg was on, which show was it?
Yeah.
Was it Kelly Clarkson show, maybe?
Yes.
And it was asked by Kelly Clarkson how he got his name.
How did you end up going by Snoop? I don't think I know. I know Snoopy came into play for a minute, right? Is that why?
Yeah, well, as a kid, I watched Charlie Brown. Yeah, you know, Charlie Brown was one of my favorites. And I watched Snoopy so much, my mother was like, you watch him so damn much, you starting to look like him. and I swear to you, my whole life, I had 50 years with my mother, right? And she never called me by my real name a day in her life. She called me Snoopy, Snoopy, Snoopy. That's it, that's all.
That's so cute. Do your kids call you Snoopy today, or what are they like? Well, I just imagine in my dream movie they do.
My daughter calls me Dad.
That's normal.
My youngest son called me Pop.
Okay.
And my oldest son called me when he needs some money.
That's it. That's all. That's the show. See you tomorrow on the Team 980.